Gamboa was a unique case in that he worked as an informant for about 14 years, and he had helped federal prosecutors win about 90 or nearly 100 convictions. His work had helped lead to seizures of about $1 million and hundreds of pounds of methamphetamine, cocaine, marijuana, etc. When he went to work for law enforcement in the mid-90s, he was in the country illegally. He was spurred to come forward and offer his services after a friend of his died from a drug overdose. Pretty much he made a few different cases with the Seattle police, and then he was off and running, and made cases with the DEA, with FBI, the old Immigration and Naturalization Service, which has become ICE, and was, as one narcotics or former narcotics detective described him, the kind of informant that comes along maybe once or twice in a lifetime. But he'd had this falling out with ICE. It started in May of 2009, and he basically walked away from this investigation of a methamphetamine and cocaine trafficking organization that had roots in Mexico. He felt he wasn't being treated fairly by ICE agents, that they hadn't fulfilled promises that they'd made to him, among other things, that he would be paid and he would also get a work permit. He had asked his ICE handler if he could take a job out of state because the work permit hadn't come through. When the ICE agent told him that if he left the state he could face deportation, he said enough is enough, and he walked away. Ultimately, he was arrested by ICE agents, taken to an immigration detention center in Tacoma, Washington, and sat in this detention facility for about 6 weeks, hoping he wasn't going to run into anyone he had helped arrest. Eventually, the government relented on trying to deport him after a number of federal law enforcement agents who are now retired came forward and basically expressed their support for him. He actually went public with his case last July, and a U.S. Senator, Maria Cantwell from Washington, also got on board and took his case to D.C.
I'm expressing concern over this case because he's kind of in limbo. He can't work because he doesn't have paperwork. If he is returned to El Salvador, I'm sure he will likely be killed.
I put 14 years of my life for this country. I think I am right. I'm back in the same place when I was 14 years ago when I walked into the Seattle Police Department. The only difference now, I lost my wife, my family. I have no money now, no retirement, nothing. And now everybody know my name, what I'm doing. So I'm in the really way bad spot.
With a lot of these informants, Gamboa included, they say that they've been made promises of something that's known as an S visa. And this is an immigration benefit of sorts that is used specifically to recruit and reward informants, both those who offer information about criminal enterprise as well as terrorism. The S visa was created in 1994 by the Violent Crime and Control Act. There is a cap on the number of these visas that are issued annually. And Gamboa, for instance, said that the paperwork had begun for him with an S visa dating back to 2001. But for whatever reason, it was not pushed forward or up the chain. And with a number of these cases, an agent was transferred, it slipped through the cracks. These promises were not fulfilled. Many old-time agents say that they didn't used to treat people like this, that this is a relatively new occurrence, particularly since the advent of the Department of Homeland Security in 2003. Maria Cantwell, the senator from Washington, basically has described the situation to us as a case where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing when it comes to these S visas. There is some debate between the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security on who ultimately is responsible for this program. No department, no agency has reported on it in the last 5 years, sources on the Hill tell us. We repeatedly asked how this program is operated, who's responsible for it, who's responsible for reporting it, and we got nothing but a runaround. The Justice Department referred our questions to the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Immigration and Customs Enforcement referred us back to the Justice Department. That's a first step, that we need to know how many of these people the government is extending these or offering these S visas to, and what are the results of these people having these S visas and being in this country working on these kinds of cases. Law enforcement obviously doesn't want its informants' identities to be revealed, both for the integrity of their investigations as well as for the safety of that informant. And in many cases, because of that, the informants are somewhat at a disadvantage in that relationship. It's, as one federal agent described it to us, it's very easy to exploit these people, and it's the government, they contend, that is exploiting them. And as this federal agent who left the FBI and is now an immigration attorney described it, these informants who don't have legal status in the United States are really looked at as just being a dime a dozen. And if someone goes sideways or isn't as cooperative as they'd like, then it's pretty much easy to find a new one.